Imagine this. You're walking through the forest, and suddenly you see a ship. Not on the shore, not by the water. A ship in the jungle, half swallowed by vines, as if it was forgotten here forever. And now imagine a river where the water is so hot that one mistake, and you get burned in a second, and ground that breathes under your feet. Important. Part of the stories in this episode are hard confirmed facts from archaeology and biology, and part are disputed finds and local legends that are still worth attention. Because sometimes a legend is just reality that technology hasn't caught up to yet. These are the 20 strangest finds in the jungle. The word forest is usually associated with something solid, but in the Amazon floodplains, there are places where trees float. The river overflows. Dying grasses and roots form a dense carpet. Seeds get trapped on it, then bushes appear, and even real trees. In the end, you get not an island with soil, but a huge green platform that slowly drifts. People have even managed to use that. They put up huts, hang a hammock. Sometimes they even make a mini garden. Beautiful? Yes. Safe? That's the question. Under you is water where there isn't romance, but piranhas, caimans, snakes, and everything you'd rather see on a screen. A fairy tale picture with a very practical warning. The jungle knows how to be beautiful and dangerous at the same time. Imagine you're walking at night along a damp trail somewhere deep in Amazonia, lighting the way with a flashlight, and suddenly you realize you don't need the flashlight. Under your feet, dozens of tiny mushrooms glow softly. Not plastic toys and not lighting for tourists, living organisms that themselves emit a green shine. These mushrooms were first described back in the 19th century, then their trail was lost for many decades, and only in 2009 did scientists manage to find them again. Checking was simple. By day, an ordinary, unremarkable mushroom. At night, like a miniature neon lamp. The secret is in bioluminescence. An enzyme triggers a chemical reaction, and part of the energy comes out not as heat, but as light. Why do the mushrooms need this flashlight? There are two versions. They attract insects that spread spores, or they warn, "Don't eat me." The most impressive thing is the feeling when you're standing in an absolutely black forest, and around you these living lights quietly shimmer. No nightlight in a bedroom compares to that. When we hear pyramids, we think of Egypt or Mexico. But satellite data and field research show, deep in the forests in the territory of modern Bolivia, structures are hidden that look like stepped platforms and pyramid-like mounds. For a long time, it was believed that only small, scattered tribes lived in these places. But traces of terraces, mounds, and correct geometry hint. Societies could have existed here that were far more complex than we are used to thinking. Some of the sites have not yet been excavated. Their outlines show up under the canopy. Who built them? How did they survive in a humid climate? Why did they disappear? For now, there are fewer answers than questions. And this is exactly the case when the jungle doesn't just eat stone. It also hides history from curious eyes. Everything you will hear next, we already know at least somehow. There are photos, excavations, testimonies. But the main fear and the main magic of the jungle is in what we have not yet found. The dense forests of Brazil, the impassable areas of Papua, the remote regions of Central Africa. This is not a park outside the city. There are kilometers of space there where humans haven't really gone for decades. Scientists honestly admit we know only a tiny fraction of the species living in the tropics. The same applies to ancient settlements and roads. Sometimes new satellite images show strange geometric lines where, it would seem, there is only a green wall. And it is precisely this feeling. We don't even approximately imagine how much is hidden under the canopy. That makes the jungle a place where an adult, rational person suddenly catches themselves in a childlike sensation. The world is much bigger than my city and my apartment. Sometimes in our episodes, we insert a segment called Weird topic of the day. A story wrote from the same world, but with a shade of nightmare. In the dense jungles of Bolivia, a man named Rafael stumbled upon something that should not be there. In sticky mud, the side of a rusty vessel was sticking out. Not a river barge, not a fishing boat. The shape resembles designs from the mid-20th century. According to the stories, inside there were not cozy cabins, but strange devices, glass flasks, metal stands, incomprehensible measuring instruments, either medical or experimental. And one more element that makes the story toxic for a calm sleep. On the wall, a faded swastika symbol. There is little confirmed official version, and therefore this is a story from the category where reality is often mixed with retellings. Some talk about an abandoned station from wartime. Others say the legend grew out of some real ship or boat, and the symbol could have been applied later. But the picture itself, the sign, the rusty steel, and the humid darkness of the jungle sticks in your memory for a long time. Sometimes mysticism gets tossed to us, not by the tropics, but by a northern forest. A video from Quebec is circulating online. The ground under the trees moves in waves. As if under the moss, a huge creature is hidden, slowly breathing in and out. It looks like a portal to another world. But the explanation is more mundane, and no less impressive because of it. A strong wind, wet soil, and roots that spread wide and shallow. A gust tilts the trunks, and the root system lifts whole layers of ground. And the moss on top behaves like a carpet on a moving base. This is not a ghost. This is a demonstration that under our feet, there is not a solid floor, but a living obelisk of the planet that literally moves together with the trees. Sometimes we create the strangeness ourselves. In one of the forested areas of New England, there's a house that tourists nicknamed the Witch House. No real witches were caught there. It's just the architecture such that the brain immediately draws scary fairy tales. A pointed roof, uneven stone walls, windows as if cut by hand. Time passes, and imagination fills in the rest. An unclean place, whispers, guide stories. And the house remains just a house, a reminder of how easily our brain turns an unusual shape into proof of mysticism. In the tropical forests of Belize, the ancient city of Caracol is hidden, one of the major centers of the Maya civilization. Today, most of the city is drowned in greenery. The tops of pyramids stick out above the trees, and the rest has to be literally scratched out of the forest's embrace. In its time, Caracol was a giant. Plazas, temples, roads, residences of the nobility. And all of this was built without metal, without the wheel, and without modern technology. The city disappeared when the civilization itself collapsed. For hundreds of years, the jungle did what it does. Covered stone with vines, hid roads, erased traces. And this is one of the strongest images of the jungle. It knows how not only to destroy, it knows how to preserve, hiding history like under a blanket. In the forests of Ecuador, stone structures and massive stone objects Bohosian tools were found. From this comes the legend. Giants built this. Fact, there are monumental stone blocks and constructions that look as if they are hard to assemble on your knees. Interpretation, locals linked this to giants. Anthropologists are usually more cautious. Perhaps these are ritual objects and the tools could have had a symbolic meaning. But I understand why the legend doesn't die. When you stand by huge stone forms in the thickets, the brain itself whispers, what if this is not for people of ordinary height? The legend of the White City, or the City of the Monkey God, lived for decades. And only when the forest began to be scanned with LiDAR did straight lines, squares, and walls appear under the green carpet. What was considered a fairy tale turned out to be a real archaeological complex. Expeditions found stone structures, altars, sculptures. Local residents had long considered the place forbidden and sacred. And now it's clear why. The city looks like a frozen ghost of a civilization that the forest kept from Chajik eyes. This is a perfect example of how sometimes a legend is just reality, waiting for technology. In northern Guatemala lies the ancient city of El Mirador, one of the largest centers of the Maya of the pre-classic period. Today, from the air, it looks like a strange relief. Hills overgrown with forest. But if you dig under the ground, you find gigantic platforms and pyramids. The reasons for the decline are still debated: resources, wars, climate. And the jungle did what it does best: slowly took the stone back and hid the city as if it never existed. And here, there is an important psychological point. Each such city is a reminder that our modernity on the scale of history is a thin film on the surface of time. Imagine a river that you cannot even dip a finger into. The pain comes instantly. And this is not a myth. In the jungles of Peru, there's a stretch of river where the water heats almost to boiling, in some places to very high temperatures. Local residents have known this phenomenon for centuries. Here you could warm yourself, wash, brew herbs. When researchers got there, it turned out that the water really is dangerously hot. And the main strangeness is this: nearby, there is no familiar volcano on the horizon that would explain everything in a second. So, the versions go through geology, underground faults, circulation of hot waters, closed systems of springs. Whatever it is, for a tourist, the conclusion is simple. This is not exotic, but a place where a mistake can cost health. The beauty of the jungle sometimes looks like a trap, simply because we are used to the idea that water equals safe. Not always. Whales are associated with the ocean, but that makes the story of a young humpback whale found dead among thickets on an island off the coast of Brazil, near the mouth of the Amazon, even stranger. It lay not on the beach, but deeper in the forest. How? The most plausible explanation is strong tides and storm logistics of nature. The carcass could have been carried inland by a wave, and then the water receded and left the whale where it does not belong. The image is still surreal. Birds, vines, green shoom, and Radam, a huge sea giant. Nature sometimes shows its roots do not have to match our ideas of normal. One stone sphere is decor. Hundreds of perfectly round stone spheres across an entire country. That is a mystery. In Costa Rica, about 300 stone spheres were found, from small to gigantic, up to 2 meters. Some are carved from very hard rock, and they were made long before modern machines. Who made them? They are linked to pre-Hispanic cultures. Why? And here begins the emptiness of meaning. Boundaries of settlements, rituals, status. There are many versions, little evidence. And a sad detail: some of the spheres were taken from their original places, set up near villas and hotels. The objects survived, but the context died, and it is the context that most often explains why. If you want to see how ancient people fitted architecture into nature, look at Sigiriya. In the middle of a green sea of jungle, a huge monolith rises, and on top, the ruins of a fortress with terraces and pools. The ascent is hundreds of steps, in places directly along a sheer wall. Below, forest. Above, the horizon. And here one thought hits especially hard. Sometimes the strangest things are not monsters and legends, but human stubbornness. Someone really decided to build a fortress there, where it would seem there should be nothing but wind. To talk about the weirdness of forests, and not once remember Bigfoot, is almost a crime against the culture of myths. Science has no evidence of Bigfoot's existence, but there is a phenomenon. Stories, tracks of doubtful origin, blurry footage that lives for decades. And I'm more interested not in, does he exist, but in, why the story doesn't die. Because Bigfoot is the shadow of our feelings. Fear that in the forest there is someone stronger than us, and hope that there is still a place on the planet for a mystery that cannot be closed by one search query. There are peoples for whom the Amazon is not exotic, but home. And there are tribes with minimal contact with the outside world. Sometimes they are accidentally filmed from the air. You can see clearings, the roofs of huts, people who raise bows when a plane passes over them. At that moment, for them, the whole modern world is an iron bird in the sky. The paradox is that those who are least connected to civilization suffer the most from its appetites. Deforestation, roads, barges, machinery. In the news, it often looks like a patch of deforestation, but for a small people, it is the end of an entire universe that existed for hundreds of years. From above the Amazon, you can sometimes see strange patterns: squares, straight lines, circles. These are geoglyphs, ancient ditches and embankments, created by people long before a forest grew over them. And here's what flips the Pravichnu picture. Perhaps the impassable Amazon is not an eternal wild wall, but a territory where there was once a different landscape mosaic. Settlements, fields, roads. Why these figures? Boundaries, rituals, a system of hozaistva. The versions argue, but the fact remains. The jungle hides traces of human work so well that for centuries we considered these places untouched. There is an island that formally belongs to India, but in fact lives by its own laws, North Sentinel. A tribe known as the Sentinelese lives there, and they do not want guests, at all. Any attempts to come close are met the same way. People on the shore with weapons make it clear, turn around. The history of contact is grim. Diseases, violence, attempts to show civilization. Today, approaching the island is prohibited by law, so as not to bring infections and not to provoke a tragedy. The Sentinelese are a living reminder that not everyone dreams of becoming part of the global world. For someone, their forest is not content, but a full universe that they defend the way they can. In different parts of South Asia, you can see giant depressions that look like the footprint of an enormous foot. In the Hindu tradition, they are associated with Hanuman, a deity in the form of a monkey. For believers, this is not a shape of stone, but the imprint of the presence of a god on earth. A skeptic will say, erosion, weathering, perhaps human obrabotki. A believer will answer, the coincidences are too recognizable. And you know what matters? Even if you are a facts-only person, these places still work. Because when you stand by a stone footprint, your brain for a second allows the impossible. And that feeling is rare. People go to such places for that. A story that sounds like the beginning of a mystical novel, but is based on a real journey. On one of the tropical islands of Thailand, a traveler was walking along a forest trail and suddenly came out to a place where a ship should not be. A large hull, thrown onto land and half hidden by vegetation. On the outside, a strangeness. Minimal graffiti, minimal traces of vandalism, as if the vessel is not touched. Inside, even stronger. The corridors are clean, the doors are intact, cabins where you could spend the night. There is no familiar chaos of an abandoned place. Locals at first avoided answers, then reluctantly admitted, the ship is considered unkind. They say people died there. Sometimes it is used as cheap housing if there is nowhere else to go, but no one stays for long. Yes, the real story may turn out to be more prosaic. A decommissioned vessel, a chain of accidents, fears that stuck to the place. But the image, a ship stuck on the border of the sea and the jungle, is too powerful to brush off. And in this, perhaps, lies the main effect of all these finds. Each one, whether it is a glowing mushroom, a stone sphere, or a ghost ship. Write everything you think in the comments, and if you want to see the next part, something similar, then leave likes, write comments, and subscribe to the Top Facts channel. Collections of the most incredible facts and videos from all over the internet. Thanks for watching, and right now, watch the previous episodes that have already appeared on your screen.